We're getting tractor trailer loads of boxes stacked on pallets and shrink wrapped and shipped to us. Rows and rows of boxes and stacks of boxes. These records have been received. We index them very much like an old card catalog type system. We can narrow it down to the best of our ability within a time frame, but then we're still searching one record at a time to find the disposition of that firearm.
A little more than an hour outside our nation's capital sits the small town of Martinsburg, West Virginia. And inside this quaint town is a nondescript building. And that building houses a task force with a vital mission, tracing the ownership of guns used to commit a crime in this country. And last year set a record for the agency. They received more than 400,000 trace requests.
If I were to go into a gun store and buy a gun, I would fill out what we call ATF Form 4473. So a retail dealer would theoretically have a 4473 for every single firearm that he sold, and that form is identifying the individual who purchased that gun.
When the police recover a crime gun and contact the tracing center, a 4473 is what they're after, the form identifying the original owner.
Law enforcement call us with a serial number and say, can you look this up in the system? Well, that's not how it works. It's not just punching the serial number into a system that has all this information. We're actually piecing together every step of that firearm to the point where it was sold to an individual. There is no national database. There's no national registry of gun ownership in America.
The Firearms Owners Protection Act of 1986, which was pushed through with support and lobbying on behalf of the NRA, prohibits the federal government from establishing a gun registry of any kind. So to trace a gun sold by a dealer still in business, the ATF has to call every merchant in the supply chain, from the manufacturer down to the retail dealer, to find that 4473.
And I have a firearm trace for this morning, please.
We're contacting the manufacturer. They're able to tell us what wholesaler they transferred the firearm to, and the wholesaler can tell us the retailer that they transferred it to, and the retailer should be able to tell us the name of the individual to who the firearm was sold.
Okay, and the date of transfer. Okay, and the last name of the purchaser.
We're contacting each one of those licensed dealers in that chain.
Wouldn't it just be easier at the point of sale if they just sent a record or an electronic record to the federal government so that you could just go and look that up as opposed to having to piecemeal this together basically over the phone?
I'm not sure if that would be easier or not. That's not the way the system works now. So, because ATF is an apolitical agency, we just follow the laws as they are.
The intercontinental phone tag? That's only for gun dealers still in business. The boxes and boxes and boxes of paper Agent Trotman mentioned earlier, those are just the records of dealers who have gone out of business.
Currently, we're receiving a historical high number of out-of-business records from dealers. Currently, we've got to be over 2.5 million records a month that we're receiving from out-of-business dealers.
A while ago, the records backlog got so bad, it threatened the agent's safety.
We had over 10,000 boxes stored throughout the building, down the halls, in any of the common areas. The floors were beginning to buckle, and it became a safety issue here in the facility. We had to figure out where to start putting other boxes, and somebody had the idea to bring in these shipping containers temporarily.
How long ago was the temporary solution put into place?
That was about 10 years ago now. If a trace request came in today to one of these dealers that's gone out of business, a tracer is going to walk out here, find the shipping container that they need to find that dealer in, and sort through those boxes until they find the one box with a certain time period of the records that they need to complete that trace.
Agent Trotman said there are 29 shipping containers on site currently, each housing between 500 and 1,000 boxes. Each of those boxes has about 2,000 records, which means the shipping containers alone store anywhere between 29 and 58 million paper records. And that's not even including the 10,000 boxes inside the building.
This is not a storage facility. This isn't a warehouse. Everything that's back there in boxes is in a motion. It's in a process.
All these records are waiting to be photographed, cataloged, and destroyed. Eventually. The boxes are organized and indexed so tracers can access records while the documents are in the queue. But when it's finally their turn, the documents land here, the document scanning room. We
do scan them digitally as a static digital image, but again, in not creating any kind of a searchable database or artificial registry of gun ownership. We go through a quality control process to make sure that we captured everything that's relevant, and then those records are destroyed.
Even when the records are digitized, agents still can't search them electronically.
We can't punch in a name, we can't punch in any kind of information and search it. What we're essentially doing is cataloging all of those records in sort of an index system so that we can go to a particular dealer, a particular period of time, but then we're still searching one record at a time for that particular sale of the firearm. We complete a routine trace in between 4 and 7 days. We do have an urgent trace process. If it's a high-profile shooting, if it's officer involved, then we'll get those traces done within 24 hours. Oftentimes we get them completed in a matter of hours or minutes, but a routine trace takes between 4 and 7 days.
If you think about the time-intensive process involved, that's pretty impressive. And their success rate?
We're at about 65% success rate, or upwards of 70% success rate, somewhere in that neighborhood. The single biggest reason for a trace to fail or be unsuccessful, or at least be delayed, is a bad firearm description, an invalid firearm description.
Meaning the requesting officer described the make or model of the gun incorrectly or misread the serial number. 0 for an O, 1 for an I, that sort of thing.
What's not fixable is if a dealer doesn't have complete records. If the dealer went out of business and didn't realize that it was his obligation to submit his out-of-business records. If the dealer sustained a fire or a natural disaster and the records were destroyed. Those are the kinds of things that we can't do anything about.
Because all the final sales records, those 4473 forms we saw earlier, are kept at the local dealer level, the ATF has basically no mode of recourse if the record keeping is sloppy or if those records were damaged. So I asked Agent Trotman about a possible solution.
If there was at least some duplicate of that form somewhere that you would be able to better do your job, is that accurate?
I think in any case, if there were multiple ways to access some kind of information, then that could probably be helpful.
Wouldn't you say that if you had a searchable electronic database, it would allow you to do your job more efficiently and successfully?
I think that's a great question, and not having anything to compare that to, because ATF is an apolitical agency, we just follow the laws as they are enacted, and we have a very good system in place.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.